creating curiosity by asking better questions. This is Shed Talk. Fraser Abbott, Tourism Calgary. The things you know that you don't know. Fraser Abbott, thank you very much for joining me on Shed Talk. And I understand this is like your second podcast.
Second only, but I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Well, thank you for coming, because I know when I heard all about you and I said, this is a gentleman that has to come on, because a couple of people had mentioned your name and I went, oh my gosh, this is an amazing guy. You have to tell me a little bit more about you. As in, I want to know about the bagpipes, first of all.
Yes, I'm an aspiring rock and roll bagpiper. I can clear a room faster than anybody else. You know, I show up, start playing, and people clap when I'm done, I think out of relief. But, you know, it's a lot of work, wrestling one of these tartan octopuses. I kind of get in there, give it a good squeeze. The thing makes a racket, and all of a sudden, there's beautiful music that comes out of it.
And when somebody had told me about the bagpipe, I didn't even know there was people that actually played bagpipes. And I don't even, is it for a living or?
Oh, some are amazing pipers that do it all the time. But I grew up in a kids' pipe band, and my first summer job was over at Fort Calgary. And then later we moved over to Heritage Park. At age 11 and 12, I was doing 3 shows a day with these other youth playing bagpipes. And it was a reenactment of a regiment that fought with Wolfe at the Plains of Abraham and the Siege of Quebec and Louisbourg. So it's the 78 Fraser Highlanders, no relation. But it was amazing. And we'd get to shoot off Brown Bess muskets, do black powder musket shows, play bagpipes, play drums, do Highland dancing. It was amazing. So it was a great summer employment program. And then I continued to play. Later, I was a pipe major at the University of Calgary pipe band, play all the different convocations, which led to me actually playing my bagpipes in space.
What do you mean by that?
Well, Robert Thirsk was getting an honorary degree from the University of Calgary before he became chancellor, and he was up on the International Space Station. And so there was a link through Johnson Space Center. So my bagpipes got piped up into space while I piped in the big platform party. And thank God he was in 0G and not me, because I was wearing a kilt, and that was a PG audience. So, you don't want me in a kilt in zero gravity. But it was kind of cool. So yeah, my bagpipes have been at least in low Earth orbit, as far as I know.
So when you think about it, for one single broadcast, for the furthest point from zero to how far it's out in space that got heard, that's pretty impressive when you think about the whole aspect of sound.
It's remarkable, yeah. And I was thrilled to have that opportunity. And these days I just sort of play for fun, or somebody reaches out and they've got a gig that they'd like me to do. I've got one coming up on St. Patrick's Day with the Calgary Wind Symphony. So I'm going to be playing in the Rosé Center, which is where I played for Robert Thirsk for his convocation, the space one. And this time I'm doing the RCAF March Past, celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Air Force with the Calgary Wind Symphony. So they gave me a score. It's what they would play as the Wind Symphony, and then there's my section for bagpipes, and I get to play with them.
So how do you get involved in that?
My father-in-law has been playing trombone with the Calgary Wind Symphony and its precursor, the Calgary Concert Band, for over 60 years. And years ago, I used to help MC the concerts, and they knew that I was playing the pipes. And then I think the conductor just had this one piece, and he wanted to do something with pipes. So they reached out to me and asked if I was still doing it. And I said, I'd love to do it. And I'm petrified about it, but you should do a few things that scare you every now and again and push you out of your comfort zone. And so, I signaled yes, and I did the working on the score. And then I got a chance to rehearse with them 2 weeks ago. Sounded pretty good.
So when you're doing the bagpipes, because now you're in Tourism Calgary, correct?
Yeah.
And is there any correlation between the two because of tourism, because of all the arts and stuff as well?
Well, there's lots of opportunities to do some neat things with bagpipes, but I always joke with my colleague David Woodward over at Tourism Calgary. It's like we're trying to attract the customers, not repel them. So I won't bring the bagpipes out, but we have a lot of fun with it at any rate. And a couple of years ago, I got to play for the Tourism Calgary Open House just as we were coming out of COVID, and they had me pipe in our executive to the main stage. But the great thing was I arrived early and I was chatting with the string duet that was playing beforehand, and I leaned over to them and I said, "Hey guys, I got to rehearse this march through, but out of curiosity, could you guys play Don't Stop Believing on strings?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah." Okay, well, let's try it. So we tried a segment of it, Don't Stop Believing, and it was verse, chorus, and it worked. And so I piped in the executives and everybody and to a traditional march, and then we got to the front of the stage, and then we went into Don't Stop Believing, and everybody was like, "You didn't do that." And it's like, yeah, you can't stop believing that things are going to be great in this city, and we're coming out of COVID, and it was a nice, joyous bit of optimism. You know, we'd been in the darkness for a while, and it was so nice to see our tourism community connect and come together. And why not give them a song like that everybody loves? It was great.
And going into after coming out of COVID with Tourism Calgary, what did you guys do during COVID for Tourism Calgary?
Well, in the role that I'm in, we're booking future business. I mean, I've got leads, Kevin, that I'm working on for 2030, 2032, based on the rotation of some of these international congresses. So we were filled with optimism that at some stage COVID was going to be in the rearview mirror. You've got to be booking things into the future in terms of what you can land. And it was tricky in the depths of COVID, but as it started to fade over time, then we started to get more bookings on the books. And my, oh my, it feels like we've been shot out of a cannon in terms of the activity. And if you were to ask any of the hotel or venue partners that we have on the sales side, they're all busy working those phones, and the lead distribution's been so busy, so much activity, and it's awesome to see, because the economic impact of meetings, conventions, special events, and leisure travel it's massive for a city of our size. And the days are going to get even better now that we've got two convention centers with the new BMO Center getting ready to open June 5th with their expansion. It's a game changer.
And how does Tourism Calgary? So a lot of people say that I'm going to get white hatted. What does Tourism Calgary really mean to Calgary?
So many different things that we do. What we're trying to do is position the city as a really attractive place to live, work, and play. And we're trying to attract all those leisure travelers to come here and impact the livability of the city in terms of the scope of things that are going on in the destination. So we also work on the destination brand to make it an exciting and attractive thing for many people to want to be part of. But then we spend a lot of energy on attracting these major events and conferences, sporting events. You know, we just finished Chinook Blast in February, which was a whole series of different World Cup events. We had Nitro Cross down at the Stampede, which is super cool. There was a World Cup speed skating. There was World Cup half pipe, snowboard, and skiing championships over at Windsport. We got Special Olympics that's going on right this week, which is awesome. And we just finished the Scotties Briar, which was unbelievable up at Windsport. But then all around that, too, there's arts and culture pieces that are attached to that, or what we would say were bolted on. So there's the Folk Festival does their block heater festival, which is great in the winter. And we're really activating a time of year where typically occupancy would be a little bit lower. And that's one of our strategies as well, is to make Calgary an exciting place to visit year-round with a multiplicity of activations. You know, you got groups like One Yellow Rabbit, High Performance Rodeo. It's always been a great cultural anchor for January in terms of awesome events to go see with this great theater group. And so you get that, and you got January, and then you bolt on all these other events. It has a massive impact on occupancies throughout the city, the economic impact that comes from that, but then also just the spirit. People want to be engaged. The locals are part of this. Like I was walking down Stephen Avenue 2 days ago doing a site inspection with some clients that we're trying to bring in. And I was distracted because I heard all this chirping over down at Olympic Plaza. They were doing human curling. How much fun is that? It was a blast. So you got people that'll jump on inner tubes, and based on their momentum, they slide along the ice, and they'll they'll score based on where they are at in the ring and the curling. It's hilarious.
So did they actually say, hey, this is great, we're going to actually come to Calgary and set up our conference here?
Well, yes, the group that we were trying to land is for June 2029, so they probably won't be curling at that time. We'll come up with something fun that'll make it worth their while. There's no shortage of things to do in June as well. But that's the idea, make the city really fun year-round. And Calgary's got a palpable cool factor. I could be out every night, and thankfully I'm not. I'm happily married, and I'm busy with my kids doing all sorts of stuff. But boy, oh boy, do I ever have FOMO that sits in, the fear of missing out, because every night of the week I could be doing something, because this really is an exciting city. I think it's really grown into itself now. It's awesome.
And it's interesting because you look at it being, and you, especially of anybody, the social pipeline. You guys are connectivity to everything that's happening in the city, connected to the conferences, the BMO Center, and everything that's happening. So the catalyst of greatness in the city of Calgary, that is absolutely wonderful. But I want to dig down deeper. You get these guys, an organization outside of it. How do you even find these organizations to say, come to Calgary? Yes, we're the greatest city. Trust me, I love Calgary. I'm born and raised here. My businesses are here. I love it. But looking at your guys' business model versus what I do, it's like, I know how I get my lead generation. How do you find the right teams to come here?
That's an excellent question. And I think it's a bit of a detective work and sales work that you're doing as well. So there's lots of research. So if I could use you perhaps as an example with your background with EO and construction and restaurant business, what I do in my role as director of the business development for the Champions program is I'm trying to find different thought leaders in different hubs of excellence that we've got throughout the city. Or they could be corporate leaders, they could be in academia, they could be in health. The idea is to find these different thought leaders that are doing some interesting things in their respective ecosystems. And I call them hubs of excellence or emerging hubs of excellence, where there's a lot of excitement about what they're able to do. And then have an exploratory conversation with them to find out if they attend any conferences, and if there's an opportunity to collaborate perhaps on working together to do a bid. In advance of connecting with that person for an exploratory meeting, though, of course, I will have gone into, or my team will have gone into, our research database to take a look at all these different conferences that go around. So let's say it's construction, and let's say that you're focused in on timber construction. Well, we would go into our database initially to see what kinds of timber conferences and timber construction, and is there fenestration, is there windows, is there a bunch of different groups that we could work with there? Is there a carbon sequestration agenda as well for construction that we could take a look at, because timber is better in terms of what your carbon footprint would look like than some other composites, let's say. And we would do the research just to see if that's an area where there are some conferences. And then I would have that exploratory meeting with you and then ask you, like, are you going to any different things? What do you think about Calgary? Are you passionate about this city? Did you know that there's these different conferences? What do you think about working with us to see if we could bring one of those in? And by the way, that 3,000 delegate conference that's going to be, there's a gap opening for May 2028 that looks like we could potentially bring that in. And did you know that the economic impact for that 3 or 4 day conference is about $6 million? And then let's talk about what the legacy outcomes could be of hosting that here in Calgary in terms of more retention of talent or attraction of talent into the ecosystem for that, more funding perhaps as it relates to timber construction for reducing some of that carbon footprint as well, and how we could reduce the waste. And maybe one of the legacy outcomes that we could take a look at as well is how could we boost up some DEIA opportunities? Do we have
What's a D?
Diversity, equity, inclusivity, and accessibility, and just see, do we have any of our First Nations partners that could be at the table that we could impact the ability of that workforce to be trained in those particular areas and actually be the masters of their domain in terms of developing businesses in that realm. Could we be doing that as the third most multicultural city in the country? What opportunities would exist there for maybe some new migrants that came in from Ukraine or from the Sudan? and make sure that they've got some opportunities on that end too. And how could you work with developing sort of the gender diversity in that realm as well, and making sure that there's opportunities for everybody to feel like they're welcome and that they belong in that respective sector. So that's an example of what we would try to do. We'd work with our different databases and do all sorts of research, but then of course we have to do the outreach, which I say is the sales approach, and have that exploratory meeting with you and find out if you're as equally excited about bringing business to Calgary as I am.
And bringing that business to Calgary, because one of your competitors, and I'm just looking at one of your competitors, is obviously you got Tourism Calgary, Tourism Edmonton, Tourism, and I'm assuming Vancouver. So they would be like competitors to you. Where am I going to go, to Vancouver or to Calgary?
Right.
Added value proposition.
Sure.
Is there tax incentives as well for these organizations to come?
Tax, not so much, but what there is in our respective ecosystem is sometimes there's some opportunity funding that we might be able to tap into that could offset the costs, the conference costs. So take, for example, our sports group. They were fortunate enough to get some funding from the Calgary Hotel Association, which is a levy on hotel stays, and a percentage of that might funnel over to Tourism Calgary. We got some funding from Travel Alberta, which is an occupancy tax that they levy of 4% throughout the province. And that's based on hotel stays too. So it's not coming out of your pocket unless you're staying at a hotel. And then so those two sources of funding. And so our sports team was able to leverage some of that to put it into different, hosting different events. So I think a couple of years ago they had 4.1 million that they were spending, I think, in 2021, and that number's increased to about 5.2. But the types of events that they've secured for the city, the return on investment's 28-1. I would take that all day. Find me a broker that can get me those types of returns. So tourism generates great economic returns. And one of the great things about tourism too is low cost of entry to get into it. No barriers for employment. I mean, basically anybody can get into tourism in some capacity. You've got steak and restaurant business, we're always looking for people that smile through their eyes. That's the key thing of getting the right people into the restaurant industry, and then also the ones that are prepared to do the work, right? So great work ethic. So no barriers really to entry there. And look at the kind of quick returns that we can get. So an investment in tourism, I think, gets you a very quick return, at least what we're doing on the sports side, 28-1 on sports. Fantastic. We're doing similar types of things on the meetings and convention side, trying to make investments in different conferences that we could bring in. I'll give you an example. We're trying to work on this International Geosciences Conference for 2028. Takes place in August, and we're competing against Melbourne and Glasgow to get it. It's going to cost about $2 million to host it, but $20 million in economic impact. 20 million. And imagine, this is the Olympics for the earth sciences. There are so many things that are going on in the geoscience community as it pertains to work on our planet and what we can do in terms of climate change, and think of the different people that are working in that sector and how we could broaden that out. But imagine if we host that here. So yes, our competition isn't just Edmonton and Vancouver or Montreal and Toronto. It's Dubai, it's Melbourne, it's Copenhagen. And now Calgary is in a position that we can compete against those cities, because before we were too small. We didn't have enough convention capacity. We got two amazing convention centers, the Calgary TELUS Convention Center, which is turning 50, by the way, but it's still got a new car smell. And then we got the BMO Event Center that's ready to open its expansion, which now gives us the opportunity to go after those big conferences. Rotary International will be here in September 2025, 25,000 delegates. Now, the economic impact of that's massive and profound, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of heavy lifting to land a group like that.
So when you're putting these, so let's talk like Olympics as an example, because the Olympics, and because you just said it's like the Olympics. So you got Dubai, you got all these. So you're doing a presentation, okay? So it's $20 million economic impact to Calgary,
Yep.
okay? Now, you've got to do this package together and put it together. Is there like Well, we've got a budget of $300,000 to put the package together to present this package.
I only wish we had $300,000 budget for a bid package, but yes. Yeah.
But then that's where I'm wondering, because every time, like, as in, I'm in business, so we're looking at it. We have the cure to, I use this as an example. We have the cure to cancer, and I use this tongue in cheek wise. But if you don't know how to get it into the marketplace, it means absolutely nothing. And that first presentation that they do, and why do they have presentations for the Olympics that cost $15 million just to present? And then when you're looking at $20 million in here, is there a budget for presenting to these people to say, why come from Dubai to here? Because you're competing with big dollars.
Yeah.
Never mind the hotel capacities and that part of it. But you're competing with guys that are going to put a presentation together. And I don't know if they buy, here's a car, I'll give you a car, I'll give you this to sweeten the deal, as in the soccer federation back in the day. Back in the day.
And IOC, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of looking back at this, because as a sales pitch and you're doing that, what are your added value propositions for that?
Well, at the bid stage, that's an area where we're not spending government dollars, and we have to hustle hard in order to come up with some different funds to be able to do the bid. So Tourism Calgary, obviously, we're working with our local organizing committees to put forth bids, and that's what we do. But what I mean by we're not spending any government dollars is when we're going over to do a pitch, say in Korea, which is what's coming up for this International Geosciences Conference, we have to create a not-for-profit corporation, soliciting corporation, a foundation, wherein we can go out and solicit sponsorships for the bid phase. It's a lot of work.
Oh, that is massive, just to be able to do that. And that's there's your $100,000. How you get that money through corp or through donations, through corporate, obviously through charitable.
Yeah.
Like, that work in itself is huge. And I don't think a lot of people realize what you have to do to get to that level.
To hustle to get it. And, our competition in this case is Melbourne and Glasgow. But what if we're up against United Arab Emirates, which has no problem cutting a check? We're better fiduciary stewards of the dollars that come in. It helps that I'm the son of a Scottish accountant, but these are we're gonna spend the money very, very wisely. There's transparency. We're looking after that, but boy, we try to do things at low cost with high impact. And I think what we're able to do is we're so passionate about the destination. We have so many different offerings, and our infrastructure's unbelievable. We are a great convention destination. Plus, we're the gateway to the Rockies, which is another lure for many people that they're considering different destinations. Well, this is a bucket list experience to come out and experience Canada's wonder. So, when we're going up against these international groups, we've got to think a little bit more creatively. And thankfully, the hard work that Tourism Calgary's done preceding, and our partners over at Banff Lake Louise Tourism and Canmore Kananaskis, as well as Edmonton Tourism and Travel Alberta and Destination Canada, they've got really great articulate branding pieces that showcase what a compelling country we are to come to. And then we just have to work on our collaboration with other partners to make it easy, like reaching out to Border Control to give them a heads up that, we got another conference that's coming in. Got all those delegates. Let's work on the visa letters. Let's make sure that they're red flags so that they've got safer passage coming through, or at least they're aware of that when the time comes. There's all sorts of services that we provide, and to make sure that our delegate experience is a pleasant and memorable one. And Calgary's working really, really hard to make sure that we set new benchmarks of success in terms of how to host a conference.
And it's interesting because when you look at Tourism Calgary, and I look at Tourism Calgary thinking, oh, yeah, it's tourism. It's not a big deal. But if you don't have Tourism Calgary, you don't have conferences. Right. You don't have these things coming in. So I call it the things you don't know. It's been there forever, the white hatting, all this, and they say, oh, it's just there. It's there for Stampede. But realizing how intricate that you actually grow the city of Calgary to bring these great events in, all these things, why we have convention, why we have a hockey team, why this. And a lot of people would look at this and just go, it's not a big deal. Like, it's pretty powerful stuff that you're one of the key components in a city that truly makes it thrive, live, love, and die in your city.
Yeah, well, 8.5 million visitors came through Calgary in 2023, $2.7 billion in economic impact. That counts for something. And our projections are much higher for future years. We've got a provincial government that wants to see $25 billion in economic impact from tourism, I think within 10 years. So that signals we're diversifying our economy. And as it relates to the particular role that I'm in, and our team on conferences and meetings, we're using that as a catalyst for economic development. So I'll give you another example of where an area would be that we could really expand upon, but using conferences as the catalyst for it. We're getting ready to open the second largest cancer care center in North America later this year. Up by the foothills, this thing's amazing. There's 9 different research institutes within that with some of the brightest people in the world that are doing groundbreaking work with cancer care and research that are ultimately going to have an amazing impact on patient outcomes. And using precision medicine, which is using big data to come up with tailored bespoke treatments for the individuals that will improve their outcomes, is pretty remarkable. And we've attracted some of the best and brightest. But when we open that facility, we've got the opportunity to attract and retain even more talent. And using conferences that a lot of these researchers would go off to Paris to deliver a paper, why not bring it here? Let's get the economic impact. We've got the tax revenue that comes from that in terms of hosting a 3,000 person conference or a 120 person seminar. We'll take them all. But let's get some of the brightest minds to come and connect with our bright minds that are already here. And let's have those conversations about how we can really impact those respective fields. But those become the catalyst for economic development and for change. More research funding will come into those particular areas. Think of what's going on in terms of chronic pain management. What goes up at the McKeag School of Joint and Bone Health, and think of all that in terms of arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis in terms of the changes that they could do there, or the Libin cardiovascular unit. There's so much that's going on. And what we do with pediatrics, wow, this is an exciting place to be. But that's just one hub of excellence, the Cancer Care Center. And think of what we could do in terms of the growth of life sciences in that area, where they start to develop their own pharma up there too, their own drug protocols. You know, you take a look at the great work that Doug Mahoney and a variety of those amazing researchers are doing up there with CAR T cells, which were focused in on blood carcinogens. And now they're taking a look at using some of the treatments that they've done on that and bringing the CAR T cells in to start fighting cancers in soft tissue. Like, once we start to get some successes in there, look out. And you bring in AI into that and how they can do data sequencing and start taking a look at all the different things that are going on there. It's unbelievable, and it's incredibly exciting on that side. But we have these other hubs of excellence, like the School of Engineering, all the different things that are going on there, and quantum. And think of our economic sectors where we're so strong: supply chain, logistics, management. You're in construction. Go look at what SAIT's doing with their School of Construction and some of the drone technology that they're using as well for construction. Oh my gosh, it's awesome. And then advanced materials that they're using that they can manufacture on site there. Most people don't think that Calgary's a hub for this stuff, but I got news for you. We're full of delightful surprises.
And you brought those surprises because you're going into the science aspect of where I'm in the construction. They're two totally different things, but they're bringing into the same value proposition for everybody. Now, you also mentioned a little bit earlier there about SAIT students,
Right.
Okay, and bringing them together to talk about their gifts and abilities in the social aspect, their Instagrams, their podcasts. Would you want to elaborate a little bit more about that? Because we talked just before we got on air there.
Yeah, just a little passion project that I have is knowing, SAIT's got a great school for communications, as does the U of C, as does Mount Royal, as does Alberta University of the Arts. But in that communications field, wouldn't it be great if those students were also doing work showcasing some of the brilliant work that's going on at their respective institutions? I take a look at how strong the comms piece is over at University of Calgary, because I follow their feeds all the time, and I'm doing that with Mount Royal as well and with SAIT, because I'm always looking for different thought leaders, of course, and I'm so excited about what's going on. I just can't wait to meet people and learn what they're up to. But we've got this whole repository of talent, which is the broadcast journalism students, the communication students. Wouldn't it be great if we could start to incorporate some of that stuff into the fall semester, such that they've got to do case studies and it's course-related course-related work that they've got to do, credit work, doing the profiling of some of these amazing things that are going on. And they get real life experience doing it, but they also get a chance to dive in deep and take a look at the awesomeness that's going on in our post-secondary institutions. And then think of how that bridges back to industry. Super, super important, so that the average Calgarian sees the relevance of what's going on. Part of our challenge is there's so much communication and social media that's out there. There's a lot of noise, but how could we help them find a way of narrowing that story and getting it out to different people? You know, that years ago, that's how I found out about the Champions program. I was attending a conference in Honolulu, and everywhere I was looking, I saw these billboards that were talking about people trying to be ambassadors for the islands and bringing in the wedding, bringing in the corporate meeting. Everybody's a member of an association. Get that association to bring their business to Hawaii. And I thought to myself, we should embed this into the Tourism Calgary plan. So 13, 14 years ago, when I was with the Hotel Association, I made sure that that was one of the pieces that was embedded into our strategic plan, is this notion of an ambassador or champions program. And, Calgarians they've got a role to play in terms of bringing the stuff to the city. And that can accelerate what our economic diversification looks like when, you host an EO meeting here, or thanks, by the way, for having such great restaurants, because we do some off-site events at your spots too, like the Rooftop, which is a great spot.
Awesome. Thank you. You know what, Fraser Abbott, thank you very much. The things you know that you don't know, and I had no idea. We should be able to bring those kids together and actually build that program and see what we can do, because, it's all about a call to action.
I hope so. There's so many delightful surprises, and, you look around at a lot of Calgarians, we're all eager to invite people to experience what we got here, and we're all passionate about building a better tomorrow. So let's do it.
Awesome. Thank you very much for being on Shed Talk.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Now you know. Shed Talk.